The 2015 NFL Draft has come and gone, and we are going to look at what it means for your team today. But first, my least favorite topic in all of pro sports, it's Deflategate. The report just dropped, and we're going to look at what it means for Tom Brady, who should be running for the hills. This is the Backup Punter Podcast. And as always, the Backup Punter Podcast is brought to you by DynastySportsEmpire.com. Check them out. Make them your home for any Dynasty leagues you run. And also check out the Dynasty Sports Empire Podcast Network. Do not let me be your only voice in the NFL, please. Check out some great shows there. Now, right off the top, it's all about the Ted Wells Report. Now, I'm coming to you live. It's about 3:30 Eastern time here on Wednesday. The Wells Report's been out for a couple of hours now, and it's a big one. 243 pages, and this, of course, is about Deflategate. And I can't stand Deflategate, and I want to say that off the top. A, because it's got a terrible name. I don't like that we put gate behind everything. But B, because it's become one of these topics in the NFL that everybody wants to be right about, but nobody can be right about. So all it does is produce argument. And that really doesn't get us anywhere. Now, the beef of this report is that Tom Brady and two New England Patriots employees, they are named, let me see here, Jim McNally and John Jastrzemski, a sideline employee and a locker room employee, not high ranking. And it's important to say that the Wells Report found that Belichick management were not aware of this. What it did suggest, though, is that these two employees and Tom Brady were working together, Brady influencing them and them discussing between themselves and with Brady the deflation of footballs. And it strongly suggested that there was some incentives for them, and it really does not paint a good picture for Tom Brady. He refused to give his emails, he refused to give his text messages, his cell phone. A lot of bad light shining on him after this, and it's going to be very interesting to see what Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent do about this. Because no matter what they do will be wrong. If they decide to issue no punishment, well, there's a foot to stand on there. They don't have video proof. Everything in this report, it's very legally worded. Everything says that it's more likely than not that Brady was aware of the operation, because you can't completely say it. You didn't witness it. It's not fully proven, but there's 1,000 arrows pointing in one direction and not many going back the other way. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes of this. Now, I've read through the first few pages of the report. I've caught everything coming through here on Twitter. Of course, the things people are tweeting are going to be the more damning things for Brady. But please do go out and read through the report yourself, because it's got some very interesting text message exchanges between Brady and these two employees. And I understand that a quarterback may have his favorites in an equipment staff, but this really does go beyond it, and it does include messages where McNally and Jastrzemski are texting each other specifically about this, about deflating balls for Tom Brady. And the more you read it, the more you look through this, you say, damn, there was really something happening there. And I wish that wasn't the case, because my ideal outcome to all of this would be a report that says, you know what, we looked, honestly, and really didn't find much. Because that would just put it to bed after a couple days of people yelling from mountains that the Patriots are getting favorited again. Keep in mind that the Patriots, they absolutely pounded the Indianapolis Colts in that game. If this was a 1-point AFC championship, sure, let's really go crazy, but they beat them by about 1 billion points that night. So keep an eye on this over the next week. It's the report itself, I think, took 103 days, so at least they were thorough. Don't expect the punishment to come down later this evening. It'll be a little while. But what I really want to highlight from all of this getting into details, this and that. Everyone's going to have their own spin on this story. Good. What I really want to focus on here is that the punishment is not about the crime itself. If there's any punishment from Roger Goodell to Tom Brady himself or the Patriots as an organization, whether it be draft picks, financially, it's not going to be just about this. It's going to be about setting a precedent. Look at it the same lines as, Pete Rose banned for life from baseball. This is nowhere near the same level as that, but it's about setting a precedent. Now nobody bets on baseball. Even the slightest rumor of it, people say, oh God, that better not be happening. It's about setting a precedent here. And it's a different culture now. Look back to the 70s and 80s. Look at those Raiders teams. You want to see cheating? You want to see guys with plaster on their knuckles? That was some real stuff. This is, how big of an impact on the game does it have? I really struggle to suggest it was that large. But it is manipulating the equality in the game. It's manipulating the fairness. Even if it's to the smallest extent, that's too much. Because in the eyes of fans, it's everything. Ask a Jets fan, ask a Bills fan, and they'll tell you that Tom Brady is, has committed the biggest crime. And it's about perception. The NFL has shown they really don't give a damn about perception. Either that or they're ignorant to it completely. But in my opinion, something has to happen. I hope that they don't just, slap a little fine on Tom Brady, because that will ignite this whole thing again. And this is going to last all offseason. Get used to it. You're going to hate it, I'm going to hate it, but here it comes. But I think something does have to happen. I'm not calling for Tom Brady to be kicked from the league, this or that. I really doubt he's the only person doing this right now. I highly doubt that. Everyone else will see this report and stop for a bit, but I think he's going to be the big fish that gets knocked down for this. But will it be a game suspension, something like that? I've never had less certainty guessing a punishment for something. When you see a hit to the head, or if a guy gets a DUI, there's at least some precedent. There isn't for this. So keep an eye on that over the next week, because there will be a lot to talk about. Now, what I do want to talk about is the 2015 NFL Draft. And what I want to do today is go team by team and look at every team's draft. Not every single pick, but some that stood out to me, and some that you should care about. Now, once you get into day 2, day 3 of the draft, even if you've got a few teams that you like, it's really easy to lose track of the rest of the teams. The picks are coming in fast, you lose track, and that's all right. So I want to go through today and give you a few names on each team. If it's your favorite team, these should be your new favorite players. Or if it's not, these are players to watch for. These are players that will be starting in a couple of years that you're going to be hearing more of. And we'll be doing a couple more weeks of draft coverage next week, probably the week after. And I find it strange that we just blow our brains out with draft coverage for 4 months. But then when the draft actually happens and there's some real context, not just people guessing. But once there's real context, people give it about 2 days of coverage and they say, okay, we'll see you at training camp. I think that's strange to me. And a lot of that comes from the fact that people are just exhausted with the NFL draft. You can cover it up to a certain point, but after that, you're just beating away at the same thing. Watch 100 draft specials. You're going to hear 100 times that Jameis Winston has a great arm, pro-ready quarterback, but there's red flags. Marcus Mariota is extremely athletic, great kid. Can he read through his progressions? It's the same thing over and over, and people try to go deeper. They change their rankings, whether it be for real reasons or just wanting clicks. But it's the same stuff. But now that we have some real context, I want to talk about it all. So I'm going to go through the whole first round, and we'll hit on each and every team. And I'll throw in the Seattle Seahawks and the Buffalo Bills in the spot where they would have been. So let's start off with the Tampa Bay Bucks. They grabbed Jameis Winston. We knew they would. I'm done talking about Jameis Winston. I don't want to anymore. You all know he's just my favorite player in the league. I've ordered all 3 of his jerseys. So all the best to Jameis Winston. In round 2, interesting pick from them, they selected Ali Marpet, a center out of Hobart College, Division III. Now, he tested out beautifully, everything you want to see, but when you're playing in Division III, a lot of great competition there, but there's a lot of defensive tackles who are rushing to the game from their geography class. Is Ali Marpet really going to hit it? I'm not sure. That might be more of a, 2-3 years from now he comes into his own. But as a second-round pick, he should start. 5th round, we get wide receiver Kenny Bell, one of the best Twitter handles in the world. I think it's AfroThunder_80. Something like that. Search him up. Afro Thunder. And he's got a good one, too. He earned that name. Now, he is a vertical receiver. It's a bit strange because with Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson, I thought they'd go for a slot guy, maybe a little earlier to really help Winston when he can't push it to the sidelines. But if Kenny Bell can, refine his route running, that could be a great pick. Number 2, the Tennessee Titans. This is one of my favorite draft classes of the entire weekend. And that's a good thing because I think that the Tennessee Titans have a terrible roster. Now, first they got Marcus Mariota. They said no to all the trade offers. The rumors that we heard, probably 5% of them are true as to what the packages were, especially from Philly. But good on them for standing pat, not getting tempted. If you're going to do something, go for it. Go full bore. That's what they did. So they got Mariota. Next pick I love. They traded back a little bit in round 2, and at the 40th overall pick, they got Dorial Green-Beckham. Now, he's got the potential to be Randy Moss in a bigger body. He's also got the potential to not be in the league in 1 year. But his ceiling is higher than nearly every player in this draft class. Tennessee has, somewhat of the same thing in Justin Hunter, wide receiver who was supposed to be the sleeper last year, entering, the fantasy football sleeper. Really didn't do anything. My hope is that Dorial Green-Beckham is not forced into a starting role right away. That would be bad for him. I hope he's able to come in complimentary on passing downs where they can get him some touches. But that's a great pick. Value right there. Round 4, Tennessee Titans are a team after my own heart. Fullback Jalston Fowler, out of Alabama, best fullback in the draft, 5'11", 254, and he can really catch out of the backfield. He's got some hidden talent out of that backfield, and that will be huge for Marcus Mariota, because that gives him an extra blocker back there on blitzes, but also a guy he can dump it off to. And he's going to pave the way for their round 5 pick, who I have as one of my dark horses for the entire season next year. You guys are sick of hearing me talk about him, but that's David Cobb out of Minnesota. He was my sleeper for this whole draft. He should have gone in late 3, early 4, but they get him here. And he is we'll call him an Alfred Morris, a Frank Gore type. He's not going to go outside the hash marks often, but when you give him 3 yards, he will take 5 yards over and over. He's going to run you over, but he doesn't seek out contact in a stupid way. He's just going to bounce off you, great center of gravity, great angling on his body. 5'11", 229. I think he should be the starter this year because Bishop Sankey is not showing me anything with the Tennessee Titans. So what have they done there? They've got a quarterback, a wide receiver, fullback, and a running back. They've built an offense. It's going to take a while for it to click, but the parts are there. We go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They selected Dante Fowler in the first round. Great pick. That was pretty much what we presumed they would do. Then they came back with a 36th overall pick at the top of round 2. They got T.J. Yeldon, 6'1", 226 out of Alabama. And, he got tucked behind Eddie Lacy. And he's battled a lot of injuries, but he's extremely talented. 3 down back. He can really come in and be much better than what they hoped Toby Gerhart would be. That was a failed signing. And as much as I love Denard Robinson, one of the best college football players of all time, he's not the answer. If T.J. Yeldon can stay healthy, and he can flash a little more top-end speed, that could be an incredible pick. And he should be their starter from day one. If you're looking for a guy later in your fantasy football drafts, keep an eye on T.J. Yeldon, just because he'll get a lot of usage if he's healthy. Looking down a little further, Jacksonville had a good draft themselves. Round 5, Rashad Green out of FSU. He was Jameis Winston's top option. 5'11", 182. He's a bit small, but that's mattering less and less in today's NFL. This guy can play from the slot, play out wide. He's pro-ready, great routes. His QB is going to love him. Him and Bortles are going to click, I think. In round 5, that's a steal. He could have gone in 3, and I wouldn't have blinked an eye. And then in round 6, a guy that really fell, defensive tackle Michael Bennett, 6'2", 293 out of Ohio State. Turn on an Ohio State game, he's their best player on defense on most downs. Why did he fall? It must be a medical. I didn't come across any huge red flags with him up until the draft. But give him to Gus Bradley, and not only does Gus Bradley have experience with players like Bennett, He's got experience putting Michael Bennett's into successful situations with the Seattle Seahawks. I think Michael Bennett as a 6th-round pick is one of the best value picks in this whole draft. So a good day for Jacksonville. Moving on to number 4, the Oakland Raiders. They grabbed Amari Cooper. Great pick by them. He's one of my top 3 favorites for the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Out of this whole class, I think he'll have one of the best careers. And then they grabbed another good weapon for David Carr. Round 3, pick 68, Clive Walford, the tight end. Now, he's about 6'4", 250. He's really not a vertical threat, but he can do enough. He's very all-around, average, above average athletically. The place that he will help most is third down. The Raiders were horrific on third down last year. They really need to get something going. The Raiders also released James Jones, which I don't agree with whatsoever. But hey, that's going to be a good signing for someone else. And I bet the Cleveland Browns and Miami Dolphins are regretting signing Dwayne Bowe, Brian Hartline, Greg Jennings, because I'd take James Jones over any of them. Next, we've got the Washington Redskins. They took Brandon Scherf. They took him over Leonard Williams. That's gutsy. But they identified what they wanted, and they got him. Scherf's going to be a 10-year pro, starting at right tackle, which I'm not wild about. He could be an all-pro right guard. But if they can get a tackle, that gives them flexibility. Number 2, 38th overall, they got Preston Smith. He's a defensive end, outside linebacker, versatile, out of Mississippi State. Now, he's 6'5", just over 280, I think he is. And he's an all-around, just a pro. When you look at him, all you can think is starter. He's a starter. He can get after the passer. He can really set an anchor against the run. And it's, these are peculiar picks for the Redskins because they are safe picks. And they are picks that should impact in year 1 without much risk. And it's great to see. In round 3, they got Matt Jones, the running back out of Florida. This guy's 6'2", 231. He looks twice that size. He's going to be great in pass blocking, excellent in short yardage. He's just an absolute fighter. This guy's wonderful value in round 3. Put him alongside Alfred Morris. Alfred Morris is now missing Roy Halou, who is with the Oakland Raiders now. So that's going to be a great pairing. Then in round 4, they got Jamison Crowder out of Duke. He's only 5'8", but he's fast as hell. Slot guy, maybe, but an excellent return man. Could break some games open for them. Then when you look to the New York Jets at number 6, they got Leonard Williams. How lucky are they? Put him alongside Sheldon Richardson. That's going to be incredible. Put him alongside Muhammad Wilkerson. You've got the best defensive front in football. They're going to get after Tom Brady, assuming Tom Brady's on the field. But we'll see. Wonderful pick. And I actually had a question from Luke over Twitter, and he asked about the New York Jets. And his question, it was to the point. Luke asked, why didn't the Jets take Kevin White? So Luke must be a Kevin White fan. And what I'll say to you, Luke, is to look back at the New York Jets roster 3, 4, and 5 years ago. And I'm assuming your concern, and a lot of Jets fans, their concern is that, why are we stockpiling players at one position where we have needs elsewhere? Look back 3, 4, 5 years. Who was on the D-line then? Who was in the linebacking core then? All of these positions are going to be full of faces that aren't there right now. Richardson and Wilkerson, they're going to have contracts come up. It's going to get expensive. There's a lot of factors involved here. They're drafting Leonard Williams to be a 10-year starter. So my suggestion to you is that in 3, 4 years, you'll look back on this and you'll say, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I hope that's the case because I love Leonard Williams. And they did go out and they got a wide receiver in round 2, Devin Smith out of Ohio State. 37th overall, a little bit high for him. I'm not in love with the guy. Pure deep threat, so he can help out, clear some space for Brandon Marshall, for Eric Decker. And eventually, maybe he can catch some deep balls from Bryce Petty, who they grabbed in round 4 out of Baylor. Now, he's got a great body, great deep ball. Of course, he's another one of these system quarterbacks. Let me just blanket term everyone here. System quarterback who needs to learn to progress through his reads. If he can do that, he's got a cannon arm, and he could look really good with Devin Smith. Now, Bryce Petty shouldn't even be in the conversation for starting this year, especially not week 1. But keep an eye out for him because he was the number 3 quarterback on a lot of boards, including mine. Number 7, we've got the Bears. They did grab Kevin White. If you're drafting a rookie receiver in your fantasy draft this year, make it Kevin White because Brandon Marshall took 100-plus targets out of town with him. Kevin White could easily get 70, 80 receptions this year. Second round, they came back around, they grabbed their nose tackle. Because in round 1, I was thinking, it would really make sense if they got Danny Shelton. But that doesn't matter now. Round 2, 39th pick, they grab Eddie Goldman out of FSU. This guy's a pure nose tackle, 6'4", 336. Doesn't get after the passer too much, but he will hold his ground and let pass rushers move around him. That's a great top 2 picks for the Chicago Bears. The Atlanta Falcons, they went out and they got Vic Beasley. They had a need, they went for it, and they fixed it. Vic Beasley is a great pass rusher. He's going to wake up that Dan Quinn defense. Then in round 2, they grabbed Jalen Collins, 42nd overall pick, and he's the long, lean, raw corner out of LSU. He was originally mocked as high as the middle of the first round, but he's so raw that you really don't know what you're getting, especially in the first couple of years. Now, look in round 3, the Atlanta Falcons grabbed Tevin Coleman, extremely talented running back out of Indiana, 5'11", 206, enough speed to support an entire roster. The thing with Coleman is that he's all-out effort all the time, which at running back isn't great. Look at Le'Veon Bell. He looks like he's falling asleep in the backfield before he makes his cuts. So get him in there. I'd like him to see a large number of carries because I think he can really awaken that offense with Matt Ryan. And the Atlanta Falcons are really a team poised to make a big jump this year. So keep an eye on Tevin Coleman. My favorite pick of their draft, though, 5th round, Grady Jarrett out of Clemson. 6'1", 304. Dan Quinn is going to love this guy. He's strong as hell. You can line him up all over the defensive line depending on the down and just let him work. He's not the sexy pick, and that's why he's in the 5th round. He shouldn't have fallen that far. Great pick by the Falcons. New York Giants were up next. They grabbed Eric Flowers, 9th overall, which was a bit high, but I love the guy. 6'6", 329, massive. He's a mean guy out of Miami. He's going to fit that offensive line perfectly. Round 2, they trade up and grab Landon Collins, so they get 2 first-round talents. That's a great start to the draft for the Giants. Then in round 3, let me try to pronounce this. Owamagbe Odigizwa out of UCLA. And I'll admit to you right now that I didn't spell it correctly on my paper in front of me. I spelled it phonetically. I spelled it Odiggizua. And I know that reflects very poorly on me, but I really want to learn his name because I think I'll be talking about him a lot. Out of UCLA, he's a physical freak, great edge rusher, and with some of the talented pieces that New York has up front, I think he could quietly build in a secondary pass rush behind them and become a surprise guy. Round 3 is a very good value for him, especially in that scheme. Number 10, the Rams love what they did. They went and grabbed Todd Gurley. Pair him with Trey Mason, who they got last year, and this gives Jeff Fisher an absolutely dominant backfield. And I think Jeff Fisher, I will bet the shirt off my back that he was banging the table for this guy, because this gives him a workhorse, and that's what he's wanted so badly. If Todd Gurley's healthy for week 1, which I think he should be, I'd love to see maybe a 70-30 split between him and Trey Mason, because Trey Mason can do some great things in the open field. Rounds 2 and 3, they got some offensive line help, Rob Havenstein and Jamon Brown. This is all about their first pick. If you're going to have a power runner, get some power linemen. They're building up front. They've already got one of the best defenses in football. Build that offense. Build it in the trenches. I love it. But then later in round 3, they grabbed Sean Mannion. And I don't like that, and I don't know what it's about. Sean Mannion, in my opinion, was a 5th, 6th round quarterback, maybe. Now, he gets compared to Mike Glennon for his size. He's 6'6". But the time that it takes Mannion to see an open receiver and then go through his entire release, it's way too long. And it's not going to work in the NFL at all, period. So he needs to really rebuild himself. As a late-round pick, I'd love the guy. I do like watching him in college, and it's nothing against him. But picking him in round 3, that puts some expectations on him that I'm really not confident he'll meet. So that's one I didn't love. Next, the Minnesota Vikings had a great class. I really like their class. First, they got Trey Waynes, put him with Xavier Rhodes. Zimmer is going to love these guys. Trey Waynes is going to go up against the Jordy Nelsons, against the Calvin Johnsons, and he's going to do well. Round 2, they grabbed Eric Kendricks, inside linebacker, and this is a coverage linebacker. You see they're building their pass defense here. And it's incredible how they're doing this. The Minnesota Vikings, they're going to surprise on defense again. They had a good year last year. They're only getting better. Eric Kendricks, you might need to hide him a little bit if you're getting run on. But in terms of coverage, tight ends, slot receivers, beautiful. Then in round 4, absolute steal, TJ Clemmings, the right tackle out of Pittsburgh. There was a medical issue with his shoulder. He fell this far. But even if that medical issue does lead to him having a shorter-than-average career, perhaps, if that's the fear, in the 4th round, you can't argue with that. He could start from day 1 and be a fantastic pick. Next, we've got the Cleveland Browns at number 12. They made 12 picks. 12 picks in this draft. First off was Danny Shelton. You know I love that pick. Their defensive line is deep, deep, deep. They are going to be difficult to run on as long as they can get some strong play from their second level. With their 19th pick overall, they selected Cam Irving, a center. And I don't like that pick, because they are making that pick with the assumption that Alex Mack is going to leave when his contract expires next year. I don't like these assumption picks. I'd prefer... There was so much talent on the board at 19, and this isn't anything against Cam Irving. He's a great player, a great lineman. But go out and become great at another position. Don't grab these security nets, these just-in-case ones. Go out and sign Alex Mack. He's a great center. Go out and keep him. There's value elsewhere. But hey, I'm sure people disagree with me. I think they could have done a lot more with that 19th overall pick. Round 3, they made a little noise with Duke Johnson, the running back, the home run threat, adding him to a backfield of Terrence West, Isaiah Crowell, who's one of my favorite runners in the whole league. All 3 of these guys could start opening day. You really don't know it, and that's a good thing. Duke Johnson gives them a home run threat. And with the QB play, is it Manziel? I don't know. Is it McCown? Please God, no. So you're going to need the odd home run from your backfield. So Duke Johnson out of Miami, absolutely incredible prospect. I love the guy. And if you can get him involved in the receiving game, that would be perfect. Again, in round 3, Xavier Cooper builds the heart of that defensive line even more. This guy's incredibly strong. Cleveland fans will love him. And then in round 7, let me pronounce this one again myself. Ifo Ekpre Olamu out of Oregon. Now this guy's a cornerback who blew his knee out just before the Rose Bowl. Extremely small, 5'8", undersized all day long. But if he were healthy, he would have been a high pick. Because think of a Charles Tillman type. There's no body to speak of here, but it's all ball skills. Maybe he could transition to a safety role, a rover in that secondary. But this is as good a value pick as you're going to find. In the 7th round, you're usually picking bums or special teams guys. To get this talent there, he might need a redshirt season as he recovers. But long term, that could be great. Next, we got the New Orleans Saints. At number 13, they grabbed Andrus Peat. I love Andrus Peat. He was my second favorite offensive lineman. Was it the best use of New Orleans' resources? I don't know. And I have the same feeling with Stephon Anthony at 31. Stephon Anthony tested wonderfully. I bet Rob Ryan was banging the table for him. And they do need to shore up that linebacking core. Stephon Anthony's talented, but he's late second talented. I would have liked to have seen them add a cornerback here. I think Andrus Peat and then a cornerback would have been fantastic. But the Saints have a lot of holes to fill. Round 3, they added Garrett Grayson, the QB from Colorado State. Now, he's a little bit like Drew Brees. There's not a lot of size there, but he comes from a pro-style offense. He can make reads. He can deliver the ball. There's nothing that wows you, but in the right system, I think he could work. It's a bit early, though, but I like it when a team identifies their prospect and sticks to their guns, doesn't get swayed by other boards. So good on them. Then in round 3, they did get a corner, P.J. Williams, out of FSU. That's some plus value there. There were some character concerns beforehand, but P.J. Williams got a chance to come in and start day 1. At 14, the Miami Dolphins get Devontae Parker, whose mother did not want him to go to Cleveland. You and me both, Mama. Devontae Parker's going to start from day 1, I think. He's that talented. He really got lost in the shuffle behind Kevin White and Amari Cooper. He shouldn't have. Number 2, they got Jordan Phillips. He's the big guy that I've talked about a few times from Oklahoma. 6'5", almost 330. I don't like the player whatsoever, really, I'll be honest with you. But, with all that defensive line talent, Ndamukong Suh, all those guys, as a second rounder, that's about where his value should sit. Pure physical projection. Then in round 5, one of my favorite picks, Jay Ajayi, the running back out of Boise State. He plummeted because of a knee injury, but Lamar Miller, entering a contract year, Ajayi could really be a backup plan. I could see him starting some games this year, as long as he's healthy, because he can do everything. He's an incredible running back. 49ers here at 15. Now, they traded back to pick number 17 with the San Diego Chargers, but they selected the guy they wanted all along, and the guy that many people mocked to them, Arik Armstead. Now, he'll try to help fill out that defensive line void left by Justin Smith. They've got a lot of holes in the middle. Arik Armstead, another prospect I don't like. I think he's a long ways away, but someone was going to fall in love with his body, with his potential, and that was the Niners. Round 3, they got a steal with Eli Harold, edge rusher. I thought he'd go early 2 even. Eli Harold, he's a great fit for Jim Tom Sula. And in round 5, the 49ers, they get, I hate draft grades, but I'll give the 49ers an A+, because they drafted punter Bradley Pinion out of Clemson, the first punter off the board, so automatically they have the best draft in 2015. 16th overall, we're halfway there. The Houston Texans grabbed Kevin Johnson, such a clean prospect, started from day one. He should be in the league for a long time. Love Kevin Johnson. Second, they got Bernardrick McKinney. Now, he's a unique inside linebacker, 6'5", 240-some-odd pounds. I don't love him in coverage, but he can move to the edge. He can be versatile. Romeo Crennel will use that guy as well as any defensive coordinator in this league, I think. He's really going to like him. That's going to go great. Round 3, Jalen Strong. What a steal that is. I'd mock Jalen Strong to them in round 1 before these issues with his hand came up. Even if he does need a small surgery in his hand, if he misses most of season 1, well, you're still getting a great value in round 3. Wonderful pick there. Good draft by the Texans. San Diego Chargers, with the 17th pick, traded up to 15, and they grabbed Melvin Gordon, which I absolutely love. They are going to use him in the passing game. He's going to prove that he has more passing game talent than he showed at Wisconsin, and he's my early favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year, just because of how much usage he's going to be getting. A lot of the times, Offensive Rookie of the Year, it doesn't come down to how good you were, it comes down to numbers. And I think Gordon's going to get a shot to go for that 1,000 yards, maybe grab 10 touchdowns, and that's going to give him a very strong case. Round 2, they stole another one of my favorite prospects, Denzel Perryman, the fire hydrant inside linebacker. 5'11", even that looks a bit generous, but he is going to bruise some people for the Chargers. Can he stay on the field all 3 downs? Ooh, you've got to be a risk taker to do that. But the Chargers are going to love him. If you're a Chargers fan, get ready, because he's going to be your new favorite player. Kansas City Chiefs followed that. Marcus Peters in the first round. Very troubled cornerback. A lot of red flags. But if you take those away, probably the most talented cornerback in this class. Andy Reid is going to slap him around, set him straight. I think it's going to be great. Third round, they got Chris Conley out of Georgia. Now, he's the wide receiver. If you watch any combine coverage, he blew it up. He jumped a mile in the air, fast as lightning, and he comes at 6'2", 213. The door's wide open at receiver there, so I think they're certainly going to get him some touches. And then in the 5th round, James O'Shaughnessy. This was a prospect I was very high on, because one of the best uses of my time has been watching late-round tight end prospects from schools like Illinois State. It's been a rough few weeks, we'll admit that. But he is a pure athletic projection. And he's got the body, he's got the speed, he can learn behind Travis Kelce. But he could come on just like Kelce did. It takes a couple of years, but everything's there to make him a very good football player. And I think this offense, Alex Smith, could really provide a role for him. So keep an eye on him, James O'Shaughnessy. He's more than just a fun name. Now next, the 19th overall pick was Cleveland again, of course, but that was originally the Buffalo Bills pick, which they lost in the Sammy Watkins deal. Their first pick was number 50 overall in the second. They got Ronald Darby. Excellent dreadlocks, A+ grade on that. They've already got Leotis McKelvin, Stephon Gilmore, so this just gives Rex Ryan the cornerbacks that he wants. He loves cornerbacks. He'd have 10 on the roster if he could. I'm not super high on Darby. He struggles to make plays on the football, to locate the ball in the air, but Rex will find a role. Then in round 5, Carlos Williams out of FSU, the running back. Excellent fit for Rex Ryan's running style, because he's 5'11", 230. Gives him that Chris Ivory type like he had in New York. Now there's some red flags with him too that you've got to get over. But if Rex Ryan can get him some touches, he could really fill in the Fred Jackson role when Fred Jackson retires. So keep an eye out for him, maybe on some goal line situations. That's Carlos Williams. Next were the Philadelphia Eagles, who did not trade up for Marcus Mariota. They didn't do much at all. No headlines. They got all that out of the way earlier in the offseason. And I had a sneaking suspicion that they would just stand pat and be normal for once. So that was nice. First round, they grabbed Nelson Aguilar. That is a bit high, in my opinion, but if there is one team that he can really succeed on, it's probably Chip Kelly's Eagles. Chip Kelly tried to recruit him to Oregon. He failed there, so he came back and got his guy. Now, Riley Cooper and Jordan Matthews, that's not a terribly fearsome wide receiving core. So maybe chuck those guys on the outside and put Nelson Aguilar on the inside. Sam Bradford's going to like that. Round 2, they got one of my favorite prospects, Eric Rowe. Incredible size. One of 3 cornerbacks drafted by Philadelphia. So you know that they are trying to get something going at that position. It was a big problem last year. Looking past that, we have 21, the Cincinnati Bengals. I love what the Bengals did because Andrew Whitworth, their starting tackle, he's 33. Before the draft, he came out and he said, I dare you to draft a tackle. I dare the Bengals. Well, the Cincinnati Bengals said, Dear Andrew Whitworth, go pound sand. Sincerely, the Cincinnati Bengals. With their first pick, they drafted Cedric Ogbuehi, great tackle prospect. He hasn't put it all together yet, but the physical talents are incredible. Round 2, they came right back around, did it again. Jake Fisher, incredible tackle. I love this guy. I would have even taken Jake Fisher over Cedric Ogbuehi and not blinked an eye. Now, he's an incredible fit in their scheme. That's what makes him impressive. He's 6'6", but he's a former tight end. So in a zone scheme, he's going to get to that next level very quickly. It's going to impress a lot of people. Jeremy Hill is going to absolutely love Jake Fisher running behind him. In round 3, they got the man that some people consider to be the top inside linebacker prospect, Paul Dawson. Best instincts you'll ever see, but he stunk up the combine. A lot of questions from him off the field, but the Bengals have done so well with Vontaze Burfict, who was a similar situation, so watch for Paul Dawson. He could really, really come out of nowhere to be an absolute star. Pittsburgh Steelers, they picked at 22, and they got Bud Dupree. I love Bud Dupree. He's a great scheme fit there. He will stop the run from day one, which you don't always get from guys on the edge, and he'll get after the passer enough. He's not going to be a 10, 12, 14 sack guy, but he's going to be a great all-around player there, and I like that. Round 3, they got Sammy Coates. Bad hands, good speed. That same story at wide receiver. If Antonio Brown does miss any games from a holdout, Sammy Coates can play some. He's more of a guy that you might hear of 2-3 years from now when he refines his game. Round 6, a great pick. Anthony Chickillo, defensive end from Miami. Great in the 3-4, great value there. When you watch Miami's games, all you see is Anthony Chickillo. So I can't understand why he dropped to the 6th, but hey, good on the Steelers. Then in round 7, Gerard Holloman, safety out of Louisville, tied the all-time FBS record, 14 interceptions this past year. 14 interceptions for Louisville. But he is very bad at everything else, which is an issue because you don't want to be good at one thing and be very bad at everything else. Even if he was decent at tackling, that would be okay, but he looks terrified when a ball carrier gets near him. It's boom or bust, and the busts are pretty ugly. But hell, as a 7th round pick, this guy was projected. Look back at some mock drafts a couple months ago. You'll see him in the 2nd round very comfortably. People are probably trying to delete those by now because they look so dumb. But he was considered to be a much higher pick. 23, the Detroit Lions. Now they moved back on a trade, but eventually they did draft Laken Tomlinson, trying to establish a little more of a running game, perhaps, whether it be with Joique Bell or whether it be with 2nd round pick Amir Abdullah. I love Abdullah, 5'9" out of Nebraska. Probably the best character you'll find in this draft. Off the field, everything's just incredible. He does have a tendency to fumble, which makes me nervous. But that's a small issue. As long as he can clean that up, he can be a starting running back. I think he's just a fantastic pick. Round 3, Gabe Wright, the defensive tackle. He'll replace Nick Fairley. penetrating defensive lineman. Just a great fit. That pick is exactly what you want to do as a team in round 3. That's a blueprint pick right there. And in round 5, I've got to give some more love to the fullbacks. Michael Burton out of Rutgers. And he can give a little receiving to Sam Bradford there too. Thump in the run game and help protect Amir Abdullah. But I'm not going to let a fullback pick go by without some love. Next, the Arizona Cardinals. They got DJ Humphries, an incredible tackle prospect. Now, you've heard me talk about him before. He's the guy from Florida. Played all year at 280, came to the Combine at 304, wowed everyone. Top prospect on a lot of boards in terms of tackles. I think he'll do great there. One pick I absolutely love that they made, round 3, David Johnson out of North Iowa. Running back he is. He's 6'1", 224, but he used to be a receiver. And you can tell because he's an incredible receiver out of the backfield. If you are looking for a running back sleeper for your fantasy football team, make it David Johnson. After you make it David Cobb, because David Cobb's the man. At 25, the Carolina Panthers, I don't like their draft. I don't like their first-round pick, and they only made 5 picks in their draft. So there's not a lot of good going on for the Carolina Panthers. If you're a Panthers fan, I'm sorry. I don't mean to bash on the team at all, because I do like Carolina very much, in fact. But their first-round pick, Shaq Thompson, 6 feet tall, 228, nowhere near a first-round value. If I'm an NFL GM, I would have only liked this guy in the 3rd round. I don't like his fit in the NFL. In college, incredible player. But he's 6 foot tall, 228. Is he a safety? I don't think he has the coverage skills. Is he a linebacker? I don't think he's big enough. Is he a running back, like some people want to say? God, no. Look at him run the football in college. I've never seen a ball carried further away from the body. Sorry. So I'm not sure where that's going to play. Hopefully he can bulk up and impress. I really hope he does. But right now, that's a curious pick for me. In round 2, they got Devin Funchess. Pair him with Kelvin Benjamin, and I really do like that pick. Now, they desperately need to get somebody to play on the inside for Cam Newton. Greg Olsen won't do it all by himself. But they've got 3 big targets for Cam Newton right now. Especially in the red zone, that's going to help. Then we look to the Baltimore Ravens. Ozzie Newsome always has a great draft. He started it out a little curious for me. Brashad Perryman in the first round. Now, Perryman, of course, ran that 4.24, 4.26 time at his pro day. He's not that fast when you watch his playing tape, but, of course, he's still a burner. I thought he would be a better pick in the 2nd round, but he'll give them that Torrey Smith presence that they lost. He'll take the safeties up high so guys like Steve Smith can dominate over the middle, and so guys like 2nd-round pick Max Williams can dominate. Joe Flacco's going to love Max Williams. He's not a Gronkowski, he's not a Jimmy Graham, but the comparison you'll see a lot is Todd Heap, and that's correct. I wouldn't put it past him to have a 600 or 700 yard season as a rookie, because there's going to be tons of opportunities. And then looking deeper into their draft, they had a real good draft, the Ravens did. Round 3, Carl Davis. Not the best character, but this guy's 6'5". I think he's 320. Absolutely dominant. Strong as a bull. In round 3, that's great value. He should have gone in 2. And one guy I do want to point out here, just at the bottom of the draft. He's not someone I'd read about, looked into too much beforehand. I just caught his name in passing. Round 6, it's wide receiver Darren Waller out of Georgia Tech. 6'6", 238 pounds. That is a large human being. Now, will they convert him to tight end? I don't know. Use him as a red zone weapon? I'm not sure. But Mark Trestman has got to find a role for him because he's going to love him. So keep an eye on him, Darren Waller. If not on the real field, add him to your Madden team. Have some fun with him. The Dallas Cowboys selected Byron Jones. Physically gifted cornerback in round 1, 6'1", 199. Very good pick because their secondary is not getting it done at all. And with their next pick, of course, they selected Randy Gregory. And that's something that I want to pause and talk about here. Randy Gregory, leading up to the draft, it's in draft coverage, there's a lot of lazy terminology thrown around. Oh, he's a game manager. He's a system quarterback. Maybe he's these things that really bug me because they don't get down to the nitty-gritty of it. With Randy Gregory, it was, character concerns. Character concerns. What character concerns? You tell me he was late for some meetings. There were some marijuana issues. But many of the big reporters kept hammering at something else. And they'd report, well, I'm hearing it's actually something else. It's something deeper than that. Well, unless you're going to tell me what it is, I don't give a damn. Don't let it go out to people's assumptions, because that's bad. And then recently, over the past couple of days, reports have come out from many journalists saying that it's allegedly a mental illness. It's depression or anxiety, something like that. And for them to report that without it being confirmed by him or factual, I think that's absolute garbage. I don't think that should be reported by them. If he is, if Randy Gregory is just lazy, if he just likes to smoke dope and miss meetings, to hell with him. Fend for yourself. But if he actually is dealing with depression, with anxiety, if he's dealing with a bipolar disorder, like some have suggested, that's not something that should be reported as a scoop from a source. That's Bush League, and that drove me nuts. And that's something that the NFL hasn't really had to handle a lot of. They've crossed the gay player bridge with Michael Sam. Did they do it smoothly? I think they did. It's the response to Michael Sam entering the league. Of course, there's always going to be idiots. No matter what you do, there will be idiots. But I was pleased with the response from players in the league and around the league. But with something like mental illness, that's a bit of a taboo topic in the NFL. The only time you see it coming up, really, unfortunately, is when you discuss players with CTE, how they become depressed. Unfortunately, a lot of those players are no longer alive. But to have a rookie coming in where it's publicized that he may have depression or anxiety, it's an interesting situation. And I hope that there can come a time where Randy Gregory discusses this, and it's not left to the idiocy that I think this reporting has been. Because that's not something that you need to report from sources. If there's a trade, if there's a signing, sure. Scoop it up, break the news, pound your chest. But something like this, not everything needs to be a tweet. And that's my thoughts on Randy Gregory. I hope he succeeds. There's a high ceiling, a very low floor. But for the value, Dallas got a really good pick there. And I'm going to give some love to an undrafted free agent from the Dallas Cowboys to wrap this up. Brandon Bridge, Canadian quarterback. If he started tomorrow, he'd have a top 5 arm in terms of arm strength in the entire league. Maybe even better. This is a cannon. An absolute cannon arm. He's out of South Alabama. Very little accuracy to speak of. He can throw a 90-yard pass as accurately as he can throw a 2-yard dump off. There's no touch at all to speak of. But he didn't get much help at South Alabama. And in terms of a project, absolutely incredible. And the Cowboys are a great fit because there's room for him to stick on that roster behind Tony Romo. I hope to God he does, because he is a great, great project at quarterback. Now, following the Cowboys, the Denver Broncos, who were originally slotted to pick 28, they traded up for Shane Ray. Which is awesome, because Shane Ray, one week he's pulled over with 35 grams of marijuana in his car. The next week, a team from the marijuana legal state trades up to pick him. I mean, if you're Shane Ray, pinch yourself. You must be dreaming. Put him alongside Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware. They're going to have some packages that will make quarterbacks wet their pants. This will be an incredible pick, I think. As long as he can get off blockers, I think he can really succeed. 8-10 sacks a year you might see from him. A third-round pick I liked from Denver. I wasn't wild about all of their class, but a third-round pick I like. Jeff Heuerman, out of Ohio State. Great in pass protection. He'll help protect Peyton Manning, but a lot of untapped potential athletically. Now, he's not going to replace Julius Thomas, but with Peyton Manning there, you know how he can elevate mediocre tight ends. Jeff Heuerman has the potential to be better than mediocre, so keep an eye on him. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts, who really surprised. They drafted Philip Dorsett, the speed demon, to put alongside Andre Johnson, T.Y. Hilton. They're building an absolute arsenal, absolute fortress for Andrew Luck. If he can't succeed with these guys, there's no hope. And I think he's going to light it up in 2015. Round 3, defensive end Henry Anderson out of Stanford. 6'6", 294. This guy's a steal. He's going to start. He's going to succeed. I don't know how he lasted that long. They went back to Stanford again. Again, it's Andrew Luck's alma mater. Round 5, they got nose tackle David Perry. He was my sleeper at that position, if you remember from a couple weeks back. Only 6'1", 308, but he is as strong as you'll want to find in this draft. There's going to be room for him to play. And in round 5, running back Josh Robinson out of Mississippi State. 5'8", 217. That is a stout, square human being. Put him alongside Frank Gore, Boom Herron. There's going to be a good backfield there, especially if Frank Gore retires in a year or two. Josh Robinson could factor in. Green Bay Packers stayed at 30. They had a curious draft. They went for Demarius Randall, safety out of Arizona State in the first round, who they're going to convert him to a cornerback. Very good man coverage skills. It's a bit early for him, but very good in man coverage. Could see him in the slot. Round 2, they came right back and they drafted Quentin Rollins, another cornerback. So I understand trying to defend in a passing league, but they certainly set themselves up nice at cornerback. Round 3, an interesting pick that you might not see a lot of receptions out of in 2015, but you might see him on the highlight tape for special teams. That's Ty Montgomery out of Stanford. Very fast receiver. Talented in the return game, creative. He has a body that I would like to see at running back, so keep an eye out for that. And then in round 5, they traded up for Brett Hundley. Some people, for whatever reason, were upset about this pick. It's not like you're trying to replace Aaron Rodgers. Some people even started to write articles about how he would be the heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers in 4, 5, 6 years. Give me a break. Just stop typing. This guy is here to develop as a backup, and it's an incredible project for Mike McCarthy. Aaron Rodgers entering the league in 2005 and Aaron Rodgers today, two completely different people. So if Mike McCarthy can even turn Brett Hundley into a good backup, or better yet, turn him into a trading chip in a couple years, that's a fine pick. Now, 31st overall, that was the New Orleans Saints, but we're going to look at the Seattle Seahawks here, as they originally held the pick before trading for Jimmy Graham. Now, with their first pick, round 2, 63 overall, they selected Michigan defensive end Frank Clark. My God, that was a strange pick. Frank Clark has, I hate calling these things red flags because I feel like I'm minimizing it. He has some red flags with domestic abuse. Now, over the last couple of days, John Schneider, the GM, Pete Carroll, they've got themselves kind of foot in their mouth with this entire Frank Clark situation. It doesn't look like they did all of their homework on him. And I believe in one radio interview, Seattle radio station, I'll try to tweet it out after this podcast, John Schneider said something to the effect of, if you have domestic violence in your past that we believe was a domestic violence incident, you're off our board. I'm sorry, but you're off our board. There is no possible way that they could have read the police report on Frank Clark and ever thought something else was happening. I read the police report this morning, and a couple of the witnesses described one of the noises as resembling the woman's head being pounded against the wall. And if you want to look up the police report, go for it. It will make you want to buy a Frank Clark jersey just to throw in the garbage. It's a really strange pick for me. Football-wise, he fits what they do, but there's a lot of explaining to do there. But with the Seahawks, I want to give them some love. I don't just want to bash on them. Their third-round pick, Tyler Lockett, one of my favorite picks of this entire draft. Tyler Lockett, he's another small receiver for the Seahawks, but he could step in and start from the slot day one. He is so smart, so good at running routes, so dependable, always open. Russell Wilson is going to absolutely love Tyler Lockett. He can return the football too, watch for that. Then in rounds 4 and 5, they drafted some offensive guards, Terry Poole and Mark Glowinski. So they're trying to build up that line, especially for life after Marshawn Lynch, which could be as soon as 2016. So, the Seahawks did some good work in the later rounds, but all the talk is going to be about Frank Clark. And the Seahawks kind of stepped in their own due with that one. So we'll see how that goes. And number 32, the New England Patriots, they stayed there, and as they always do, make a great pick. Malcolm Brown out of Texas. You're all tired of hearing me talk about Malcolm Brown. This is a great defensive tackle prospect. Play him all over the line. I would have been okay with him going in the top 10. That's how much I love Malcolm Brown. Round 4, they get guard Trey Jackson. That's some very good value there. Run blocker from day one out of FSU. He played ahead of Jameis Winston. He's got some work to do in the pass game, but you could start him year one. He plays in a phone booth, does it well. And to close my draft coverage, you guys know I love my punters, my fullbacks, but the unsung heroes of that entire group are the long snappers. The New England Patriots drafted a long snapper in round 5, Joe Cardona from the Navy. I think that alone should result in there being no punishment at all for Deflategate, because it's a good deed. Long snappers getting drafted in round 5, it makes the common man, it makes you and me believe there's still a bit of a shot for the NFL if this long snapper is getting drafted. So those are my thoughts on the 2015 NFL Draft in terms of a team-by-team basis. Now for next week, I want you to get involved. Reach out over Twitter, over Facebook, email at The Backup Punter, check out the website. So tweet us at The Backup Punter and tell me, what's the storyline that's bugging you about the draft? What pick did you not like? What team did you see picking and you were thinking, what the hell are you doing? At the same time, what team had your favorite draft? And what do you think about your team's draft? If you're a Panthers fan, do you agree about Shaq Thompson? Or do you think there's a role for him? If you're a St. Louis Rams fan, what do you think about Todd Gurley? Do you like that pick even though Trey Mason was in place? I love it. Please do disagree with me, though. If you're a Houston Texans fan, do you think that Jalen Strong is the steal of the draft? There's a strong case to be made. So get in touch, hit me up, and tell me what you think, because next week on the podcast, I'm going to be looking more specifically at some storylines. Players that could really impact. This week we went over who the players are, where they are. But next week we'll look at who could make a serious run at some Rookie of the Year awards. Who you should look at for your fantasy football team. And I know that some people don't like to talk about fantasy football this early, but keep in mind that I like to use fantasy football as a language, as a way to communicate how good these players can or cannot be. It's a helpful tool. So we'll look at that next week. As always, check back for some content throughout the week on thebackupunter.com. Now, over the next 2 to 3 months, content on the website itself, it'll slow down to, you'll see 2, 3, 4 featured articles each week. Now, since I'm not running advertising on my site, there's no motivation for me to churn out stuff to fill days. There's not an advertising revenue pushing me to post 10 bad articles a day about off-season news, because this is a dead zone for NFL news. When things do happen, you'll hear about it from me, but throughout the off-season, this podcast will be your home for everything backup punter oriented. So again, thank you very much for your continued support of the Backup Punter podcast. It means the world to me that you do take an hour out of your week, each and every week, to listen to the Backup Punter podcast. You can find it on iTunes, on Stitcher. It also posts to the website, thebackupunter.com, each and every week. So subscribe, like it, share it with your friends. Thank you very much again for listening. My name is Keegan Matheson, and I will see you next week.